So, if you wouldn't mind, just to kick us off, give us a short introduction on who you are and what you do, please.
Okay, so I'm Alistair Gould, and I'm chair of the Carbon Free Group and director of a couple of other CICs and a couple of other charities in the environmental field. And I work in the fields of regenerative design and, if you like, environmental experiential learning.
Fantastic. And what was it that sort of prompted you to sort of get into this industry? I mean, I know you work with a couple of venues, so the Pines Calyx being one of them, and sustainability is at the core of what that venue is and how it's designed. What was it that really sort of drove you into that industry? What motivated you to, we're not just going to make this another building or another event space? Why was sustainability so important to you?
Well, to step back from that, then working in and around clean tech and environmental areas since the early 1980s, the impetus there was travels in the States and really limits to growth, and recognizing there are lots of exciting opportunities to be part of the solution, being part of the problem, and thinking about my children, now my grandchildren. If I do things half right, then maybe they won't lock me up. So that's the sort of bigger picture why I'm doing what I'm doing. But then coming into venues per se, and it's from my experience actually, back in late 70s, going to the States and seeing stuff and recognizing the transformational impact of seeing stuff and experiencing stuff as in sustainable buildings rather than just talking about it, and doing stuff on a reasonable scale whilst doing the smaller scale stuff, and some of that nitty-gritty stuff is ever so important. It's not necessary in terms of recycling and so forth. That isn't going to be a point of contact necessary for inspiration and change with people who are coming to an event. Whereas if they see different ways of using materials, and in the case of when we designed and built the Pines Calyx, a whole closed loop approach to design the whole building, which works as a conference venue in its own right, then that opens up there, hopefully, certain people's thinking into, well, maybe I can do that in our business in a different way, etc. So, sorry, rambling answer, but hopefully that.
No, perfect. And I mean, I could talk about this all day. So yeah, I mean, it's so interesting, and I think what we're seeing now is, the proof that things can be sustainable and beautiful and functional, and efficient. There's more benefits to it than just sort of like a tick in a box to say, oh, we've got the environmental piece covered. There's a whole lot more to it than that.
And actually, just thinking about another aspect why I'm doing what I'm doing, not just in the events industry, but around environmental enterprise per se, is actually it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of creativity in it, especially when you're working with nature's designs. And so there's a lot of thinking outside the box. So that's great.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. So if you had to describe sustainability in one word, what word would you choose?
I think resilience, in its broadest terms, is as good a one-word answer.
So besides the current, obviously, pandemic that we're in, there are a number of challenges that people who work in sustainability face. I mean, certainly in the events industry, I'm always challenged with, it's going to cost more money, and I'm going to have to compromise on the, look and feel of my event, and my stakeholders are never going to buy into it, etc., etc. What sort of challenges have you found working in this space when you're trying to bring in sustainability into design or an experience? What are the biggest pushbacks you've had?
A lot of it is around systems and policies that aren't fit for purpose, and so you have to duck and dive, or you find people who are willing to dismiss some of those policies in order to get a better result.
We are finding, though, and certainly in my experience of working in corporate events, is you've got a CSR team who tell a very good story about what their policy is and what their sustainability credentials are, and then you've got a marketing team over here that aren't necessarily connected to the CSR. So, it's one of these things where, you tell a good story, but how much of that is the organisation actually following or embedding into their actual day-to-day operation? So I think there is a big disconnect between what companies say they're doing and what they are doing. So yeah, that's a massive thing. But the fact that it's even on the table and people are talking about it, I guess is an improvement to where we were maybe say 5-10 years ago. Okay. Could you recommend another sustainable business, whether it's someone you've worked with, a supplier, but someone that's impressed you, or you thought, oh, actually that's really inspired me? Sort of anybody else in the sort of sustainability sphere that you have been impressed by?
The one that maybe is long-standing and is sort of, there's a good link or reasonable link with the events world, I can think of, as Interface Carpets, who have led from the front in terms of sustainability, closed loop, and integrating solid profitability as you need to within all of that since the mid-1990s. And they're still on that journey, very creative, very collaborative, and they're still either the biggest or second biggest carpet tile manufacturer in the world. It's a very mundane product which they've been innovative and creative with, and inspired lots of other people, and still made money. And that's the important thing. It's not about.
And what is it that they do? How is it sustainable? Is it made out of something else?
Carpet tiles that are in the Calyx are net effect carpets. So those are made out of recycled fishing nets from the beaches of the Indian Ocean, where Interface help local villagers there to clean up those beaches. They get money from that material being then made into carpet tiles. Those sort of innovative approaches.
Fantastic.
And even more sort of laterally bold is that they come up with these innovations and then they share them with their competitors in the carpet world, because they want as many people to do this as possible.
Yeah.
And they're still making money, and so that's a great example. They're keeping on.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, they do say that in sustainability. I did hear another interview where someone said, who is your competitor? And they said, we don't like to think about competitors, we like to think about community. And how, like as you say, we want everybody to be getting on board with this. So if there was, another sustainable event company, I mean, that's fantastic, because it means we're one step closer to every event being sustainable. So yeah, that's amazing. Okay, I'll just look them up. Cool. Okay, so if someone was just about to start in the sort of the world of sustainability, whether that's sustainable events or building design, or in the environmental space, what piece of advice would you give them to sort of make that journey a little bit easier?
It's about holistic design from right at the very beginning. Certainly, if you're looking to design sustainably, net zero carbon and economically, then it's not about bolting onto stuff on something that's of the old model. That just doesn't work and will cost you more and so on. So it's that integrative, collaborative thinking from the get-go. If I'm thinking about event spaces, then coming back to maybe something I was saying earlier, that having some materials and design aspects which help inspire and help you think differently is kind of fun, then that's great within being fit for purpose. So in fact, we got the little show and tell table. We got the Pines Calyx has some of the range of materials we use there, and some of those are quirky and fun but fit for purpose, like recycled fan belts for the doormats, like recycled yogurt cartons for all the paneling in the toilets and the kitchens and so on. It's just those sort of things. If you bring those in, a bit of fun, then
and it makes it really tangible, I think, and people can start really getting to grips with what it's all about. I think there's a lot of like you say, policy and high level thinking, and it's like, but you want to see it and you want to feel it and experience it for yourself to be able to really really grasp it. So yeah, that's great. Awesome. So at the moment, obviously with the current pandemic, live events are currently on pause. Are you have you sort of switched to going virtual with events you would have done at the Calix, or have you sort of paused things? Are you still planning for things, but sort of in the future? What's your sort of status at the moment?
As you'd expect, closed down at the moment, which at one level provides a helpful pause to look at things differently. So we'll take that in a positive as best we can do there with the team. But in terms of my work, then a lot of my work that has been increasingly doing virtual meetings and so on anyway. So in many ways, it's just ramped up more than it was before. So in a way, nothing much has changed.
So do you think then that, post the pandemic, that budget and attention and sort of focus on sustainability is still going to be there? I mean, I think we sometimes struggle to get it on the agenda, certainly in the events world, and for it to be taken seriously as opposed to, a nice to have. Do you think that attention will still be there? Do you think we're going to have to fight for that a bit more? Do you think it will be sidelined? Or what's your perspective on that?
I like to think it will be there and more. I'm not in the industry enough to know with any certainty, but I noticed there was a headline I saw from a survey yesterday asking people how they saw things post-COVID or whatever, and only 9% would be happy to return to how things were before. And I thought that was really good to see that.
Yes, I saw that. I was very encouraged by that. That was very good.
So hopefully, therefore, there are opportunities for new narratives and increased sustainability in fun, creative ways.
Yep, totally. Okay, so in terms of post-COVID, how do you think the events industry or the sustainability industry might or should look differently? Are we still going to be doing live events? Are things going to be replaced by going virtual? Or what are your thoughts?
I'd like to think, and sort of following up on what we were discussing just then, I mean, that if we head it more into more quality and less quantity in terms of live events, using the virtues of teleconferencing and so on, hopefully they'll be thinking about enriched experience from live events. So yeah, more quality and maybe slightly less quantity.
Yeah, I mean, I've been sort of saying that for a long time. I mean, it's awful to think that something like this has had to happen in order for people to maybe take stock of that. But I think totally, when you think about how much time and energy is spent on, events or meetings in face-to-face, which could have been a phone call, which could have been done virtually, which could have been an email even. And so I think, a huge part of sustainability for me is about efficiency. And I think for a lot of this, a lot of that can be cut away, and like you said, then the ones that are left, make them really, really good and focus on enriching that experience. So yeah, I totally agree.
And within that, it's enriching, which is one of the other positives that will hopefully come out of this generally, is the opportunity of enriching community, whether that's in business or in our personal lives as well. And so in terms of events, I'd like to think there's an opportunity within those deeper quality events where there's also maybe even a digital detox in there, because we're going to be plugged in a lot more in this digital world right now, because we have to be. So to switch off from that whilst coming together is there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually, and almost taking it the other way. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What are your plans? As soon as lockdown is lifted, what's the first thing that you've got on your list to do?
At a practical level, one of the first things we'll be doing is selling our lovely local zero carbon beer from our craft brew house. So that's not a bad thing to start with. Connection with my family, but the paradox there is my son and daughter live in America and Australia respectively. So,
oh wow, okay. So you're used to
I
the
only go over there
virtual
by playing with
connections.
love miles anyway. So in a way, it doesn't change anything there. So,
Fabulous.
but
Thanks.
meanwhile, we're also I've quadrupled our food growing space here anyway. So we're going to be we were going to be self-sufficient in our own food in 2.5 years' time. We now will be hopefully by the end of this year.
Wow. Oh, well, you're set for the next apocalypse.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Alistair. That was really, really
Well, thank
good.
you, Danielle.
Excellent. Really good.